You are listening to Build, Excite, Equip, easy change management for project teams. I am your host, Nicola Graham, coming to you as a business change manager, entrepreneur and author, as well as discussing top tips and tricks for project teams to use to improve your project adoptions. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to today's podcast. You are joined with myself, Nicola Graham here, and also Molly the dog. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the poor thing's terrified because I pulled her up on my lap. But I thought we'd have cuddles while we talk. I'm particularly chirpy today, guys, because outside the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and I am feeling like summer is on its way. So what can I say? I can't wait to be a little bit chirpier than this drizzle weather that we've been having, if I can get my words out. So I've been putting feelers out and I've been asking everybody what you would like me to talk about. Obviously, these podcasts, they're a little bit of a change around whether we are talking about change management tips. Obviously, that comes from my Build, Excite, Equip book, how I help you to simplify change adoption in your projects. But today I thought I'd be doing something a bit different with you because lots of people have been asking me how I got into business change management. And I was recently attending a forum where I presented around the B methodology, and I had an opportunity to speak a little bit about my career. And a lot of people said, well, that's really interesting. You really should do a series around that so we can learn a little bit more about yourself. So I thought, why not? We'll see how it goes down. So I thought about it and where do I begin? I begin at the beginning, I guess. Now, it's fair to say that I started my career young. What I mean by that is I finished college and didn't go to university for reasons of my own, but my career choice in life didn't happen for other reasons. And I had to get a job. So funny enough, my very first job that I got, and laughing with somebody the other day about this, I was earning £12,000 a year at the prime age of 17, 18. And it's fair to say it's probably the most money or the most surplus money I've ever had in my life. Obviously living at home with parents, they feed, cook and clean for you. I'm sure if you've experienced anything like having a household, you'll understand what I mean by that. But my first job was actually a procurement manager in the IT department of a networking company. And my day role included basically procuring all of the IT from an operational perspective for that company. Little did I know that was going to be the start and also the longevity of my career as an industry. After a year of working there, I actually shifted locations. I moved from where I was in Hampshire and I moved up to the Midlands. And that's where I landed my second but very pivotal role. And that was working for a company called XMA. XMA are still around. Hi, if you were listening from XMA. Hi, colleagues. Do reach out. It'd be great to hear from you. I know some of us talk on LinkedIn. XMA were procured a few years ago now by West Coast, but when I worked for them, they were still a family-run company, and I had a role there as a salesperson. So I caught the role. I started that as a hardware sales account manager, and what that meant was XMA were a distributor of all IT things. And IT things varied from the consumables that you needed to obviously run things like your printers and fax machines, paper, pens, things like that, right through to the hardware itself. So printing, big printers, dot matrix printers, through to the servers that obviously used to fill our lovely rooms. Every industry used to have a on-premise server, so you'd need lots of hardware and software for those, as well as the solutions. But I did start in hardware, and that career was really interesting. My main role at the time was I was an account manager. I was based internally, so I seldom went to see my customers, and I was basically on a phone call every day, on the telephones every day. And it was a really, really interesting experience, actually, and it turned out I was quite good at it. I I seemed to have a nice base. I was focused on the Midlands area and specifically in the government side of things. So I'd work with either governments themselves or I would work with government organisations. So essentially it would be a body. One of them, for example, was ESPO, and they were a governing body that would basically procure for all the local governments and get them better rates and better deals. So how did I start in that role? I think I was just lucky at the time. I think back then you didn't really need a degree, which apparently you do now to be in the sales, in many of the big companies anyway. I kind of landed on it, and I always joke about it, and sorry for the salespeople out there, but I happen to think that sales was something that was the kind of job that you got when you didn't know what else to do. And hey, if you had the ability to talk the talk and walk the walk, you know, hey, what can I say? It was the kind of job that you landed. What did I love about it? There was lots of things that I loved about that job, and actually I could probably go back to that some days. I first and foremost really loved the company I worked for. I loved that small business feeling company. You know, everyone was a big part of the family, and I still have really good friends. My best friends are still from that company, or from those days of working in those companies, at that company. So I very much loved the people around me. The second part I really loved about it is the incentives. So obviously as a salesperson, you were incentivized financially. You had targets, which, as I've learned through my entire career, I am very target driven. Whatever I do, I want to achieve something. So giving me those targets, specifically short terms, were really, really good for me. And I got to love that. And I was actually very good at that. The other part was the account management side. So I had a group of accounts that I had to manage every month, and obviously just maintain them, make sure they got everything they needed. I also had some new business, which was fine. I was good at new business, but I was always better at the account management side of things. I love people. I love to meet people. I love to talk to people and get to know them. And I've always been very good at that. So I seemed to excel in that role that I had. From hardware, they kind of jigged things around, and I did then take on the consumable aspect, which is obviously very, very fast paced. You just kind of get people phoning you up. It's less about the support that you can provide and more the cost at that point. So it was a little bit more fluid in the way that you sold to them, which was not necessarily my style. It just didn't feel as competitive as what I wanted it to be, or challenging as what I wanted it to be. So I then jumped over to the local government side, where I then worked in the local government sector, and that was more about the actual service provisions that you could provide at the same time. So it wasn't just selling the hardware at that point, it was solutions, and I loved the solutions. The reason I liked it so much was that obviously it was focused on government. So if you've worked in local governments, you'll know that you have to go to tender and bid for the work, and you obviously have to make sure that you provide a good support in the legal side of that. So there was a lot of contracts that were written and statements of work, lots of back and forth with getting the price right. And quite frankly, if you got the price right, you won. And if you didn't, then you lost to somebody else. But when you did win, it was even more exciting, because then you got to see just the kind of support that you could provide to a local government. So that's what I loved about it. A challenge. So what challenges that I had in that particular field? What challenge did I have? Let me try and think. I think the challenge of constant evolution of the technology. So here I was selling a product, the best printer out there, or actually let us provide this solution to you, and before I blink, before we've even got to put the hardware in, it's out of date. So I think keeping up with the rapid change of constant technology change that was happening at that time was my biggest challenge, I think. And why did I pivot? So the truth is,